This go-home edition of Raw opens up with The Undertaker. Vince is trying to get an explanation out of him for why he did what he did, and he explains that he wasn't doing that to protect himself, but the ones he loved. Paul Bearer wants to come out and say, hey, you've done enough talking. Maybe I should do some talking. And Bear's going to say that now that he controls both Mankind and The Undertaker, he's going to be the ruler of the world. And at that point, Sid's music hits and you exclaim, he's back. And you explain that he's been out with a lower lumbar back injury. And Sid sets the record straight that, first of all, fat man, you don't rule nothing. I rule the world. Sid's back here. Talk to me a little bit. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about Sid, but this is a guy who developed a reputation for being in and out. And there's lots of rumor and innuendo and sort of inside jokes about softball. Was he really out here with a lower lumbar injury? And, what can you tell us about Sid's return and his sabbatical, if you will?
Well, I had to believe that his back was bad and that, it was affecting his work, et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of the boys will tell you that, it was softball season and he loved to play softball. And, he was an attraction in softball. You hit the long ball, as you can imagine. He wasn't a bunter. He didn't move runners around. He didn't sacrifice anybody. He hit the long ball. So, but Sid kept getting opportunities because of his amazing and obvious unlimited physical potential. He had an amazing look. He was athletic for a guy his size. And so he had everything. He had it. And, but always something seemed to get in the way. Always something adversely affected the progress of this guy who really legitimately, if you're going to draw a picture of a big box office guy, then he's one of the guys you should draw because he's 6'9", 300. He's ripped up. He looks great. And if the old Vince McMahon rule, you walk through the airport, is somebody going to notice him? You're damn right they are. So that was he just kept waiting that all the baggage of whatever it was, self-inflicted baggage or donated baggage on Sid was going to go away, and he was going to finally be able to be what he wanted to be and needed to be. It just never did happen in WWE.
Let's talk a little bit about the way we build to this Shawn Michaels, Steve Austin match here. Originally, as we said, this was supposed to be Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. You might wonder, what was Steve Austin supposed to do? He's supposed to be finally paying off with a match with Brian Pillman. And they've been building this thing since the prior fall. It was the prior September or October when Austin broke into his house and Pillman pulled a gun. And this is supposed to be the big payoff. But according to the rumor and innuendo, Pillman wasn't all the way ready to go. Shawn now needed an opponent. So you guys pivot on the way to the pay-per-view just 6 days prior and say, nope, we're going to have the tag champs face each other. Were you disappointed that Brian wasn't able to go, or was this sort of an easy fix and you still had hope for the future?
Well, it was certainly an easy fix and we had hope for the future. And yes, I was disappointed that Brian wasn't cleared. And the question was always going to be, then, will he ever be cleared?
Yeah, because since we should back that up, I guess. When he first signed with the company, he had been in a Humvee Humvee crash. And as a result, he just shattered his ankle, I believe, and was not able to perform. So we've got lots of stops and starts where we think he'll be ready here. Nope, he's not. Okay, we'll think he'll be ready here. Nope, he's not. Okay, we think he'll be ready here. Nope, he's not. And eventually they do one of these where it's going to be an angle because they know he's got to go have another surgery done. So on Superstars in the fall of 96, you have Austin put his foot in a chair, jump off the top, crush the ankle, quote unquote. Then he does the surgery. Now he's got the big cast on. That's when Austin breaks in. So he's moving around, but still not medically cleared. And it doesn't feel like at this point, you guys have gotten much of a return at all from your Brian Pillman investment.
No, unfortunately we didn't. His ankle got fused, so he couldn't bend it. So it really obviously restricts a very athletic 215, 20-pound guy's mobility. And a guy that size couldn't really afford to have that mobility restricted as it was. It was a heartbreaking thing, and I believe that it really contributed to Brian's death. The fact that he was so disappointed in his career because he knew in the back of his head that he could never do the athletic things that he used to do. as Flying Brian with a fused ankle. It was sad, and you could see that emotionally it was really working on him, and he had some some drug and alcohol issues. I remember I had him drug tested somewhere. Somebody, well, the night before we were in some town, and he was asleep on the floor in the dressing room. Of course, Jack Lanza gives me a call and tells me what happened. So I call the office and get my stuff together, and we get a drug test. Got a doctor there. He's got to pee in the bottle on the next night, and he was so irate. He called me at home, and I guess he forgot that, I'm living in Connecticut and he was in Washington State. It's like 10 o'clock in Washington State, so it's 1 a.m. for me. And the old phone rings, and Jan answers the phone, as she did more often than not. I think she got smart, finally moved the phone to my side of the bed. But I talked to him. He was cussing and raising hell, and I can't believe you do this to me. And I thought we were friends and all these things. And I said, Brian, we are friends. That's why I am doing it. Somebody's going to protect you from you. And so, he had some pain medicine in him that he didn't have a prescription for, I think, and some things, just maybe some steroids. I'm not real sure, but this day is minuscule, if he had any. But nonetheless, the ankle fuse broke his heart because he knew he could never do what he wanted to do, and that's why I kept trying to convince him that he could be the next Jesse Ventura and be a great that crazy voice of his, a gravelly voice. He's very intelligent, very quick-witted, understood the business, very well-read, up in pop culture and all those good things. But, boy, he just hated that. He thought that was a huge, huge come-down and would make him much less of a man that he wanted to be perceived as. It was a very sad thing. That Humvee accident really, it didn't kill him. The accident didn't kill him, but the results of the accident, I think, led to his death.
We'll talk about Brian Pillman more another time, I'm sure. We see Vince interview the Road Warriors, and he's asking them if they ever had problems getting along, and of course they deny it. And he's asking this because they're about to take on Shawn Michaels and Steve Austin, who are both threatening to beat the shit out of each other. LOD gets the win by countout, so Austin and Michaels retain the tag titles. Then we see part 3 of the interview with Mankind, and you're asking what fuels the insanity, and he's telling the story about Cactus Jack, and we're finally acknowledging Cactus Jack, which WWF had really never done before. And he talks about the quote sadistic wrestling subculture in Japan with deathmatch wrestling. This was like bizarre to me as a longtime WWF fan to see you guys acknowledging anything else happening, much less deathmatch wrestling from Japan. What's Vince's stance on this? How did he soften? And what did he think of fucking deathmatch wrestling?
Well, it wasn't a matter of that we're going to start endorsing deathmatch wrestling. It was a matter that we're going to acknowledge that it exists. And that in itself was a major step forward for Vince. That there was a world outside WWF at that time. And as I said earlier, sometimes even the most established organizations, and there's no organization any more established than WWE, sort of none more profitable, that sometimes even those companies have got to sit back and say, we might want to put the reset button and change our philosophy a little bit and amend what we're doing creatively. Our presentation needs to be tweaked. Maybe that's time, maybe that's now for those guys. I don't have a clue. That's their deal. But bottom line is every company's got to do that periodically. In an entertainment world, you can't stay status quo. There's only a few things that work that way. Even the Jeopardy, this cat win all that money. They do a 30-minute show. It takes them 22 minutes of content. It's a little different animal, but the bottom line is most shows have to have constant tweaking. And I'm sure they've made some tweaks over the years, but nonetheless, it's a different animal. But it's hard to keep something on television the same year after year after year after year. Even we see our news change, and we see weathermen. Now we got weather women, and we got female meteorologists. We got female sports anchors. Things are changing, and so we need to change. And I think that our acknowledging these other organizations, and we kind of acknowledged that with the Billionaire Ted stuff and all that stuff too. So it was just a matter of Vince changing his mind on how he was going to perceive things, how his positioning. And, some are saying, as I mentioned earlier, not being an asshole, but maybe it's time for him to do that again.
Let's talk a little bit about what's next on the show. We've got Undertaker and Sid for the world title, and you can't help yourself. You say that Sid swings the best baseball bat or best softball bat in all of the World Wrestling Federation, which is kind of fun.
What a wise ass.
Undertaker gets the pin. Of course, NOD interferes at the end once the match is over. And that's our go home show. Just a few weeks or a few months prior to this, Sid and Undertaker was the main event of WrestleMania. And here it's less than 5 minutes with a clean pin. Does that tell us that Sid's fallen out of favor, or is it just we're trying to sell the pay-per-view?
No, it told you, well, we're trying to sell the pay-per-view, obviously, but it told you that the front office had lost confidence in Sid at that point in time, and his push, his priority is being reevaluated.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.